Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Career Podcast. And the idea here is really to just give you an introduction to careers, but also to give you an introduction to the path of careers. I think all of you know about careers, but there are roads that people have walked that all talk to resilience, persistence, patience, and all those wonderful words. And rather than hearing it always from me, the idea here is to hear it from certain careers. Now, there are two that we'll cover today. The one is law, which will be done by our guest, Dinana Reed. Dinana Reed is my sister-in-law. And the other one is film and photography, which will be done by Dumisa, who'll join us a little bit later. So what I decided today is go with family, right? Because I'm breaking myself into this as well. So it's easier just to have a conversation with family. So Dinana, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on board. I don't think there's a necessity for full introductions, but just so that everybody knows that Dinana's on board. And as I say, Dumisa will be coming on a little bit later on. Relaxed discussion, conversation. I'm going to kick it off for a little bit and then get into a sort of discussion. What I advise you may want to do is put it on speaker view so that you can get the full view of Dinana, because if anybody else comes on, she's going to flip off your screen and go somewhere else. So as you know these things, if you put it on speaker view, you'll probably get a better version of Dinana in terms of her speaking. Is there anything I've missed out? Q&As later. I've introduced the guests. Yeah, well, let's kick off. So the way I want to do this is really just, Dinana, and once again, thanks, is just keep it simple. And I'm going to fly back and forward because I don't think there's a real systematic way in terms of doing this. And I really want to kick off by just saying, if you can just introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you do, and then we can kick off from there.
So just a quick introduction. My name is Dinana Reed, as Steve had said. I'm an admitted attorney, and my practice area is mostly from technology. And then I still do a bit of dispute management and commercial and corporate law. And I'm a mother of two, and I'm married to my husband, who's also my business partner and a client, one of my biggest clients.
Oh, wow. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Spouses working together. Is that marriage made in heaven or otherwise? But we'll chat about that later. So, Dinana, thanks for that. What I wanted to start off, I want to start off in your present day, and then I'm going to work my way backwards. So currently, you're running your own business. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm running my own law firm under the style of Dinana Reed Inc. And I have been basically practicing now as a law firm 2.5 years as a law firm. But as a consultant, I'm 5 years. So there are different types.
Okay, tell us the difference between what you
are
as a law firm.
So I'm now 5 years.
And what you are as a consultant.
Okay, so basically when I started my journey of becoming self-employed, I started first as a consultant because it was much easier and it's not really as controlled as when you are practicing now as an attorney. So I started a consulting company called Acon Consultancy, and I was just offering legal services as an in-house consultant for other companies or even to my clients. And the reason was that it was affordable to quote consultant rates than to quote attorney's rates. So that's how I started. And then, yeah.
No, I just wanted to say, so everybody understands that the difference between it is that and just let me make sure I understand it. So as a consultant, you are literally walking into firms and helping them out with regards to their requirements and then quoting them when you do that. As opposed to when you are a firm, you are practicing as an attorney, and therefore you are bound by certain regulations and compliances in order to do that.
Yes. So in terms of consulting, you are mostly bound by your company's act. However, remember that a good standing profile still remains critical in whatever that you are doing, whether as a consultant or as a legal practitioner.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit later.
Yes.
No, cool. Carry on.
Yes. So, but it is just that the rules are much easier in a consulting space. However, where it becomes challenging now is that you would find clients that now want you to represent them in court. And now you are losing money because now it means I need to appoint an attorney to now to prepare the litigation work, where I could be making money. That money now is lost. And that was the main reason why I decided then to start my own practice. It didn't make any business sense.
No, very good. So now I want to go back to the beginning.
Yes.
To school days. When did you decide to become a lawyer, and how did you decide to become a lawyer?
Okay. I think during our times, we were less fortunate than the students and other young professionals that you engage with, because they get access to career path and guidance at an earlier stage. So with us, priority was just to finish your matric. And then after that, once you have the matric results, you ask yourself, what am I going to do? So I started first thinking that I could actually be a clinical psychologist. And then when I had that conversation with my dad just said, no. I think rather take law, because you have certain characteristics. And I just went with what my dad said. And I must say that when I started, then I decided to do BProc at that time. LLB for us at that time was an honors. So you could do BProc and B juris. So B juris is 3 years, but you will still have to do 3 years of LLB. And then the beauty with BProc was that it's 4 years, but you could practice as an attorney. You could do articles after that. So on my side, it was just a matter of saying, okay, fine. In case I don't have money to do the LLB, let me rather do the BProc. And then after that, I would be able then to start my articles as a candidate attorney. So I did my BProc, which was great. I finished that in 4 years. And then, after a degree, you not know what to do because you don't have articles. That is another thing. And I think lessons learned was that most of the firms, they look at your academic results. So academic results are critical, and the institution is also as critical. So I did my BProc in the old TVB states. So I did it in Bukutatswana. So when you now apply for articles, now people do not know what is this university. It becomes a challenge as well. Whilst the results are good, but you are now competing with students from VET, students from UCT, and most of the firms would take those as a preference because they are most of the partners are actually from those institutions.
So a couple of critical things that I've heard you say, Dinana, which I just want to re-emphasize. The first one was when you picked your subject in terms of deciding to go to do law as opposed to psychology, your parents gave you some advice and said to you, this is the direction they think you should go. And they said so because of some skills that you may have. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. The second thing that I hear you saying, which I think is very applicable to certain careers, is one, the kind of institution that you go into in order to get the credibility that you need immediately. Now, I think you're going to tell me about your journey, which goes to show that that might be useful right at the beginning, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a hindrance, right?
Yes, no, it doesn't mean so. So what I did is that after my degree, I then, so what Law Society have, they have what is called School for Legal Practice. So School for Legal Practice is for graduates that have completed a law degree, a BProc or LLB, that can find articles, and then you can basically do that training program for, I think, a year. And then after that, you can then, your articles are basically reduced by 1 year, and you just do 1 year of articles to another law firm. But most of the law firms, they do not want that. Even though you've still done your 1 year of school for legal practice, they contract you for 2 years. So I would say that that year was just a year of also finding myself, and basically, also testing whether is law really what you want to do. And when I enrolled for my LLB, then I went to Port Elizabeth. It was in Port Elizabeth. It's a Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. So I did my LLB there. And the reason I chose that institution, it allowed me to specialize in my LLB, unlike most others.
So there's an interesting point here I just want to re-emphasize. So at this stage, you are still not certain whether or not you've picked the right career. You're still making a decision. Okay.
Yes, remember, Vic, that you are what? You are 21. Most of your friends are already starting to buy cars. They are articles because they are BCom students at the Deloitte and all of that. Now you ask yourself, sure, did I really actually make the right decision? But then I guess at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to waste 4 years. I've done the 4 years. You just need now to find how you can perfect your 4 years and turn it in something that you enjoy. So I researched the institutions.
I want to jump in there just for 1 second, because I think that's a real vital point.
Yes.
And I always say nothing is wasted.
Yes.
Right? There's no point where when you're walking in a particular direction and you think that you might want to go left or right, or even in some cases backwards, that it's wasted. And I like exactly how you've said that. How do I maximize what I have, what I've gained in the last 4 years? And in your case, it was, let's continue in this direction.
Yes. And then I started researching the institutions. And then PE, Port Elizabeth, they could allow you to specialize, to choose your major subjects. And they had technology and text as one of the major subjects you can specialize in. And then I was like, okay, fine, technology, this is new. So maybe then this will be what sets me apart from other lawyers.
So
that's how I am. That's what actually made me decide to continue with my LLB, and I took technology and text as my major subject.
And understanding that you have an interest in technology.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
And I think I know I'm going to emphasize this a lot of times, but
but remember at that time I didn't even have any interest in technology. My brother used to laugh at me to say that I'm so slow, but I wanted something that will set me apart, because everybody was talking, I'm doing criminal law, I'm specialized in road accident fund, I specialize in corporate law. And then I just felt that, okay, fine, why can't I find something different then?
Yeah.
And only to find that I would end up actually loving and be passionate about technology.
So I'm going to come back to your present day now, but before I do that, I just want to re-emphasize this point. And this is what the importance of these discussions are about career journeys. In a lot of cases, sometimes there's a tendency to think you know the end result, but you don't necessarily know the end result. All you can do is the best that you can do at that precise moment.
Yes.
What is also interesting is that, and I believe this to be a godly intervention, what I also believe is that when you do that, you then find a path and a place in the area that you're in that then starts to satisfy you and suit you. So coming to your present day and you running a business, tell me about your experience of starting to run a business in the last 2.5 years.
Okay, I started running a business the last 5 years.
Right. Oh, when you factor in the consulting, correct.
Yes. Okay. When I decided to now go into business, it was really not an easy decision. I didn't just wake up and say, okay, I'm starting a business. No. You know, when you are employed, there are things that you must be checking and making sure that whatever decision that you make, even as an employee, especially as a professional, they have a way of catching you in the future. Yep. So when I decided to go because I believed at that time there were certain things that organization were doing that I'm not in support of. Yep. Despite their decisions, because at the end of the day, you need to understand that decisions is made by the executive and it must be implemented. However, is it a decision that you can sleep with in the future? Should you be questioned about it?
So I want to come in there because you talked about good standing.
Yes.
You talked about reputation.
Yes.
When you started your path right at the beginning, you probably didn't think about the fact that you wouldn't be in business at a certain time.
No.
But as you progress, particularly in the career that you're in, you have to be of good standing, but also surround yourself with people and organizations that are of good standing.
No. Remember now, as when you are when you are employed by someone, it is difficult when you are asked about certain decision and then your excuse would be, but I had to make it because that's what the directors wanted.
That's what my boss wanted.
Now, yes. Now, when I am now practicing, it's a different mindset altogether.
Yep.
I'm removing myself from that. There's a Dinana running a business. There's a Dinana that is also entertaining.
Yeah.
Meaning that when work comes, you know that the first thing that you need to comply with is to make sure that you give your client the best legal advice.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding what the matter is about.
Yeah.
So you need to remove yourself from the matter. So if you are a murderer and you've told me that you've murdered, I am going to defend that case as if you are innocent from the word go.
Yeah. Well, that's the law, which is,
there is the law, and yes,
before guilty.
Yes, and that is a difference when you are now because when you are working for somebody, you can't say I was told.
Yeah.
But when you are practicing, you are exercising the client's instruction.
Yeah.
Yes, because I am acting on your instruction. It is not my instruction. So whatever that I'm implementing, regardless of whether it is right or wrong, my duty is to advise.
Correct.
But the decision is that of a client.
So what I want to ask you quickly before I bring our other guest on, who's managed to join us, hi Dumisa, is and you're going to see the contrast here. I want to ask you the question of, in running your business, to what extent how valuable was it for you to have had corporate experience before starting your own business?
For me, I must say that I won't even say that it's really corporate experience that actually gave me the technical know-how of starting a business. It was working for entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yes. Right. Because now they start practically the business from the beginning. How to run your accounts, how to, what you need to be protecting, your IP, your confidentiality. Regardless that I'm a lawyer, there are business things that you need to know to run a business effectively. And those are the tools that I got from working from entrepreneurs. But lessons that I took from those entrepreneurs was that legal is always at the last end, legal and compliance. As an entrepreneur, you don't think about compliance. You don't think about a lawyer. You just want to implement, you want to open a big business account. You want to make sure that the account gets money in.
Yeah.
You don't think about that contract. You don't think, no.
This
you
is
only think about the lawyer when trouble comes.
When trouble, this is exactly the good point to bring Mr. Dumisa in. So, ladies and gents, let me introduce you to Dumisa Rankin. As you can tell by the surname, he is of my loins. So, as good as he is, most of it is as a result of me. And Dumisa has completed his film and photography. Ste Ntobego Dumisho and Leander, can I just ask you to put your cameras on so that he can see you and know that he's talking to human beings, and so we can all see him. Dumisa has studied film and photography and completed, what is it now, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and started immediately to run his own business. So, Mr. D, from a film and photography, and what I wanted to give you here was a contrast of careers, but I also want to give you a contrast of starts and well, I'm not going to say finishes, but starts and continuations. Dumisa's in the early stages of his starting, and I wanted you to start seeing the contrast in terms of not just careers themselves, but they actually both are in the same environment, which is entrepreneurship. So Dumisa, tell us a little bit about film and photography. What is it? What did I pay for all those years?
First of all, I want to just apologize for being a bit late. I was kind of caught up at the office delivering on some stuff that ran a bit over time, but thanks for the patience, and I'm keen to share what I know with you guys. But yeah, basically, just to sum it up, like film and photography, for those of you who don't know, it's like motion pictures. So when you see movies or you see TV shows, that's basically what I got trained at varsity to do. And so I majored in cinematography, which is specifically the camera work. I chose that over like directing or writing or anything because it's a little bit more technical when it comes to setting up cameras and lighting, which gets pretty complicated, as well as just the camera motion throughout a scene. So that's why I chose that. Yeah.
No, fantastic. And you know, we were talking to Dinana a little earlier on about her process of choosing her career. And interestingly enough, it was a process that unfolded over a number of years, actually. Tell us about the process of you choosing yours.
I'd say kind of similar, actually. It started out kind of with me and like 3 friends at school who got the same sort of like little DSLR cameras and then started just shooting really crappy skits with one another and then just posting those like on the internet. But that kind of gave us the opportunity to sort of, you know, practice and get comfortable with using cameras and like kind of telling really terrible stories. But then, yeah, over just doing that over time, started getting towards like matric. I'd say we started maybe around 14 or 15 years old. And by the time I got to matric, started trying to figure out, you know, what am I going to study afterwards? And then I realized, hey, you can study film, which is something that I've been enjoying a lot and like doing in most of my spare time. So I figured that would be a sort of cool path to keep going on, because I think one of the main reasons I wanted to study film was just because I knew, or I felt as though if I didn't study film, if I studied something like a BCom or any other degree, I would have ended up going down that path. So if I ended up getting a job in BCom or anything like that, I would only do film as a hobby, and I didn't really want to do that. I kind of wanted to find a way to make it a career.
And straight after your course, you skipped the whole concept of being gainfully employed and started your own entrepreneurial business. Tell us a little bit about that and how that has been in the last 2 years or so.
Yeah, no, like I think studying for 3 years and like getting to see sort of how the film industry works in this country and all the systems that are in place. I kind of realized over the course of that 3 years that I don't want to be a part of it, because there's a lot of elements to it that just aren't sort of what I would like to be participating in terms of, just how people interact with one another and how business gets done and the level of sort of creativity that you actually get as an artist. So then what I was actually doing like throughout those 1 to 3 years, which caused a lot of my lecturers frustration, was I was actually freelancing as a photographer and a videographer on the side. So sometimes during the week or whatever, I'd skip lectures because there'd be a job that I'd rather go and do. And I figured that like getting the practical experience is a little bit more beneficial than like studying, especially considering like how much of it was theory. I was like, if I'm going to be studying the theory, I might as well just actually do it practically and then learn it, you know? And so doing that on the side for 3 years, by the time I finished at the beginning of last year, so end of 2018, me and the partner that I usually work with in terms of freelancing, we decided, well, let's start a business and let's try to see if we can actually like do this full time. It was actually more him that came with the idea to me, to like just sort of push it and pursue it, because I didn't really fully understand what it meant to like, you know, start a business. But yeah, we figured, you know, we kind of just keep doing what we're doing. It's like we're freelancing, but we're trying to sort of get more clients. And yeah, that is incredibly, incredibly difficult. For the first like year that we've had so far, it's been good. It's been very rewarding. We've learned like lots and lots about like how business works, how to negotiate, how to make a deal, but most specifically like how to provide value to anyone that you're trying to provide your business service or product to. So yeah, it's been really difficult, but you know, trying to keep a positive mind. There's a lot of learning, and yeah, it's been really cool. I've enjoyed it so far.
So what I wanted to ask is, and Dinana, are you still there? And I think I'll ask it of Dinana, and then you can come back. One of the things that you said, Dinana, was, you know, your dad giving you advice in terms of the kind of skills or the kind of interests or the kind of likes that he observed of you that lent itself to the kind of career that you're in. Give me an example, both from what your father said and what you now know. What are the kind of skills that you need to have or have an interest in order to get into a field like law?
You know, with law, I mean, from my side, as I was growing up, you know, my dad and I never take no for an answer. And, you know, I would always, even though I know that you were right, I will still go ahead and prove that actually I was right. So I liked digging, you know, and just knowing what the battle I'm facing and coming up with strategies on how to overcome that. So I would never just wake up and do things. No, just know that I have the strategy to lead it out at the end of the day. And I would engage in arguments. And then he just said that, look, psychology and law, you know, with psychology, you can't force your opinion into a person. You need to listen. It's a different skill altogether. It's got emotions, you know, and you need to listen. You lose attention quickly when you don't buy into what the person says. And on the attention side, he was right, because even when I chose technology, the reason I chose technology was that it's ever changing. So I could never get bored. So I can't do one thing every time. No, I'm going to lose you. So the beauty with technology is that each and every development that the client comes up with is different.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you have to be an engaging person. So yes. This is not a career for introspective, sort of broom closet individuals who don't want to be engaging. You need to have a strong voice. You need to be able to, you know, speak up. Yes. And as you choose the different specialities that you can go into within law, that's when you can find whether you're techie and you like, you know, consistently looking at new elements of techie. I guess as well, you need to have the desire to do a significant amount of reading.
Yes.
Which was never my skill from the context of that.
No, you must be, basically it's a puzzle. You must be able to put in the blocks together.
I like that. I like that as a clear definition of both strategy and decision. To me, sir, yours is slightly different in terms of the kind of skills that you need to have in delivering something along the lines of film and photography.
Yeah, in terms of like, I think a skill that I'd advise like everyone to have, or was like most important, is probably, and again, this is only from a perspective of a year and a half worth of actual entrepreneurial experience, but I'd say from my experience so far, the most important thing would be the willingness to learn. The willingness to learn, I think, is really important because there's so many scenarios that you like wouldn't really be exposed to or wouldn't understand until you've been exposed to it. And once you have been exposed to it, you don't want to allow yourself to really get ruined or screwed over by it in the future again. So learning from past mistakes as well as other people's mistakes is really important. But I think the willingness to learn in the sense that, you know, the film industry is a very collaborative industry. Even though not specifically in film at the moment, it's more like online and digital content production. It's still a very collaborative space because we work with a lot of marketing companies as well as SMEs. So you still need to know how to learn in terms of like what their interests are, what your collaborators' business is sort of revolving around, what your clients are trying to do and trying to achieve. So like, I think a willingness to learn is really important because you can pick up on a lot of, you know, very beneficial information just going along the sort of course of life.
Yeah, so you know, and I think the kind of creative skills in order to be making something is something that you can identify pretty soon, pretty quickly, pretty early in your life, whether you're, you know, somebody who sits in and wants to be, in Dinana's case, you know, read, strategize, fix puzzles, and go out and engage. Whereas on the other side, you know, the flair of creation, imagination, etc. I think is essential. And of course, you got most of that from me, but that's a story for another day. So I think it would be good for just, you know, to start getting engaging with everybody. We've got, say, another sort of 25 minutes. Let's all engage. What are the kind of questions that you would like to, and let's do it because we're not a big group. We don't have to do it on chat. Let's do it vocally. If you can just engage with the guests in terms of what are the kind of questions you would want to ask them.
In terms of, sorry, wait,
no,
are you saying in terms of
as in your audience? The audience can ask questions to you guys, to you and Dinana.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? Come on, here we go again. Do I have to give an incentive? Okay, I'll give a Mars bar to the first. Oh, Laken, thank you.
Yeah. I still get the Mars bar.
Yeah.
My first question is for Dinana. I'm also a law student right now. I'm only in second year, and that's something that's really worrying me is seeing a lot of graduates in terms of the LLB and so I'm doing my BA law and then LLB after for 2 years, but they don't, like, there's no jobs for them after graduating from even Wits. And so something that I picked up that you said that was really important in terms of just specializing within the law faculty, because I mean there's so many people studying it.
It's something that sets you apart.
Yeah, something that sets you apart. Yeah, because I think that the LLB is very general. So what are some things that you did in terms of studying that forced you to specialize in a certain career, and then also just skills that you would advise getting in terms of getting an advantage when applying for articles? What are some things that from your perspective firms look at in terms of choosing prospective students to do their articles?
Thank you for that, and welcome, hey? It's a nice journey. It is a nice journey, and please do not lose the passion. It is a beautiful journey, and the beauty about on your side is that you are doing BA law, and then you do LLB.
Yeah.
So remember that with BA law, it gives you most of the things that we didn't have, because BProp is structured into law. BA law, you still have I think you can do, there could still be psychology there.
Yeah, so I'm doing international relations, other subjects.
And then do you do journalism? Is there anything on because they won't call it public law, but if you have to talk about your media and journalism or communication. So on my side, to be honest with you, I would tell you that there is one part where most of the lawyers you won't find us, and if you're doing international relations, that is great if you want to specialize in it, because with international relations, then what I would say to you is that when you do your LLB, look at also taking market research, where you do mostly your trade, understand your law of trading, because with international law, what is going to set you apart from the others is if you understand trade, not from a legal point of view, from a practical point of view. So UNISA has a postgraduate diploma in risk management, and market risk is one of those. So in market risk, you would learn about commodity trading, which is all where now you are dealing with the stock exchange, mostly international trade, on how they price, how they hedge, how, all that nice language that you took from the English. So that could be that, because if you are doing international, I would say strengthen it with trade.
Okay.
However, I was a chicken, if I have to be honest with you. I started, when I did my LLB, I took medicina forensic as one of my major courses. But then when we were asked to go and attend an autopsy and pick up evidence from a dead body, that's when I deregistered. And then I started with tests.
Okay.
But South Africa does not have lawyers that are actually trained in medicina forensic.
Okay.
So yes, so that one
that's like a gap, you think?
Yes, because you do have investigating officers that will still go and do whatever, but the medicina forensic, it's more at a higher level. So I don't know if you've watched this. Is it The Bone Collector?
I think that's new too.
So that academy actually specialized in medicina forensics. So we have a shortage of that. We have a shortage of marine law, because you are doing international.
Yeah.
So marine law, that's where we have a shortage. We don't have women in there. So that's I would say that that could be the key areas that you would, or in military as well. But military, not joining the military itself, but understanding the military side, the intelligence side, because that's where they would also meet. It is just that in South Africa, unfortunately, when we do most of the military, they would have their own internal courts. And I don't.
So what I wanted
to
maybe extract from what you're saying, Dinana, and Laken, is a couple of things just for everybody to bear in mind. The one is that you've got to set yourself apart. That's essential. And I think that's what, Dinana has just mentioned. The second is that in setting yourself apart, you must do a gap analysis, which is exactly, I think, what you've just done, Dinana. These are the areas where we don't have enough of, and this is the areas where you can, you know, extend yourself and improve yourself. You need to know that in whatever area that you're thinking about going into. But the third thing I think, which is essential, once you've done the gap analysis, find the thing that actually attracts you. I mean, I like the fact that you've gone into the bone collector, you've gone into all sorts of different areas. Find the thing that you, from a passion point of view, right, your purpose to be driven to do, right? There's one thing to do a gap analysis and just dive into the gap. You may fill the gap, but have
there must be passion as well.
Find the thing that really extends you, and look at that from the construct. The last point I want to add, and then somebody can, you know, jump in and ask Mr. Dumisa a question. The last point I want to add is, when you're thinking about that, don't think about tomorrow, and also think about, what does the world look like in 15 years' time? What does the world look like when you're 35?
Yeah.
Because that's where the preparation process starts to build yourself towards that world that you're going to go into. Cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Any questions? Hey, who's interested in film and photography and creativity?
There we go.
Hello?
Someone say something.
Someone said something.
You can hear me?
Stairs,
Yeah.
taking a mic off, which means she's about to say something.
No.
Nah.
Is there a chance
Okay.
she might say something?
I wanted to ask. So I take drama at school, and really, like, I've always really been into, like, not cinematography, but more into screenplays and writing and stuff. So I just wanted to ask, like, 2 questions. First question, like, how did you convince your parents to allow you to study the arts? You know, what did you say that made them be like, oh, okay?
Talk like I'm not here, Dumisa.
And my other question was, like, is the quality of what you study, like, is it really good? Like, is it worth the money that you pay? Not like, I'm just, like, genuinely asking. Because I mean, I've asked a lot of people, and they say it's better to study the arts overseas and then come back. So I just wanted to see from your perspective.
Okay. No, thank you for the questions there. Like, what I mean, I didn't really ask them for their permission. I think that's one of the first steps, is that you just more or less try to tell them in a very polite way that this is what you want to do with your life. And yeah, wouldn't really know how to handle a scenario. I was just fortunate enough to have parents that support my decisions. And I think that my advice to you in a scenario where, let's say, your parents weren't that supportive, is maybe just give them all the information that you can and try to put them at ease and help them understand the scenario that you're trying to put yourself into. And then when it comes to your second question, in terms of, like, is it worth it? It really depends on the reason that you're going there. For me, I wasn't going to film school for the degree. I was actually only going for the practical experience as well as the networking opportunity. So the practical experience being that I'm going to be doing practical work, shooting and working on large scale projects on a consistent basis, as well as the fact that I can meet with people who are of a similar mindset to me that I can actually end up collaborating with in the industry. And I also feel like that's probably the only actual outcome or benefit that you will get out of a film school. Like, the degree is not beneficial. It's more just the practice and putting time into doing your craft as well as meeting people. So it really depends on if you want to be meeting people overseas or if you want to be meeting people locally. And the reason I chose locally is predominantly because, you know, this is still a developing film industry. So if you look at the United States and Hollywood, it's already very developed and already, like, booming very well. And if you look at South Africa, logically, this continent is just supposed to be headed in the same direction. So for me, that meant that there's more opportunity here at the moment, which is why I'd want to stay here and pursue the film industry here, because it's probably just going to emulate what's happened overseas already. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Can I answer the question about the money bit? No.
Yeah.
So actually, Dumisa he did answer like I'm here, but let me give it to you exactly what happened in that, and that is true. He was very determined to go into film and photography. But interestingly enough, even as a parent who sees things very differently, I also had some reservations. And one of the things where we went back and forth with quite aggressively for a while was the fact that he wanted to study at AFDA and I wanted him to study at Wits. I wanted him to come out with a degree in Wits because I'd never heard of AFTA and what is AFTA and what's a degree in AFTA, and nobody's going to be interested in AFTA, right? And he was very insistent on the fact that he wanted to study at AFTA, and the reason was he wanted the practical experience that he was going to get from AFTA. Of course, I had a heart attack because AFTA is twice the price of university. But ultimately, the second thing was that I actually advised him to go and study overseas because his uncles live overseas and one of them is in 3D, etc. And he was insistent on the fact that he wants to stay here because he wants to be in a growing environment as opposed to a saturated environment. So those are the kind of very quick early decisions that you need to make. And then remember, and I know your mom's here, but remember that as parents, we wish the best for you, but ultimately the choice is yours. And parents know this at the end of the day. The choice ultimately is yours. You can't, remember, you reap what you sow, you reap what you sow. So you can't go at 25 and go, oh, it was my mom and dad who made me go and do the wrong thing. Even when you choose to follow your parents, you're actually making that choice. So the point of choice never goes away.
Yeah, and can I just add something onto that as well when it comes to film? Because also if you want to get into drama and things, you don't actually need to study it. Like just going and doing it practically is probably one of the best ways of getting involved in it. So if there's like a theater near you or something where you can just start putting in time towards like, you know, networking and meeting people and practicing what you do, and that will probably, my advice is that's probably going to be way more beneficial than a film school. But yeah.
Anyone else for a question for Dinana or Demisa?
Demisa.
Hello.
Okay, can I ask a question? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
See, my question is, okay, so I'm like creating a brand right now with like a couple of friends. So the first question I want to ask you is like, how do you like successfully incorporate the creative side as well as the business side? The first question. And my second question is, I wanted to ask how are you able to give your customers value?
All right, that's interesting. Okay, so the first one, thanks for the question. Those are actually like really deep questions. But with the first one, in terms of like, how do I incorporate the creativity into what we do? I think something that actually, I thought about this the other day, and it's actually something I've noticed what I call constructive creativity versus like expressive creativity. So there's like expressive creativity where you just create because you feel like creating, right? It's how what you feel, it's what goes through your head, so you just make it. Whereas there's constructive creativity, which is basically you get a certain level of parameters, right? And this is generally what the client or the consumer wants. And you use your creative abilities to solve those issues and work within that space. And so what I've found, actually this falls into the second question, which is how do I add value, is I literally just use my creative ability in terms of telling a story to solve corporate issues. So like if a company's having a problem with the way consumers currently perceive their brand, then that already gives me an idea in terms of what content I need to be making. So now it's just a matter of what information do I need to put into that content so that the consumers can see their brand differently. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of incorporating your creativity in a way that actually sort of does something for other people. What is your brand fashion?
Nah, it's like more of like a statement, but it does incorporate those type of things. Yeah, but it's mostly for kids. Yeah, people like youth, people under the age of 25, saying what needs to be said. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'd say like just then with that, like ways you can add value is just like what are the questions that people are asking at the moment? What is it that people want to hear or aren't discussing? And then what are the ways in which you can creatively answer those questions? And then, yeah.
So
Can I?
Yeah, I was actually coming to you, Dinana. Yeah, carry on.
Yes, I just wanted to, I like the fact that Asien says he is creating a brand. So my question now to him is that how have you protected your brand?
Now I was coming to that because you see, you and I, we think alike. So, and I think just in that construct, you said something that I was going to use it now. It will probably be a little bit like 10 minutes over, but I want to use it now so that you can chat about that a little bit, Dinana, because everybody thinks, and I'm included, I'm guilty as charged. Everybody thinks consistently about the operational part of the businesses, right? And the vision, and that's fantastic. But one of the things that you must always be thinking about, regardless of what you're doing, by the way, whether you are in corporate, whether you are in on your own business, etc., are the ramifications and consequences of what you're doing. Sometimes we don't think about those things until they hit you in the face, and then all of a sudden you're picking up the phone and calling Dinana. So Dinana, can you talk a little bit about just what are the kind of things that as young people, when we're starting to think, particularly on the entrepreneurial side, but also in some cases going into the corporate side, what are the sort of one or two, or maybe two or three hurdles we might fall over if we're not careful, if we're not thinking about it?
Okay. I would say that as you start your business, you need to understand that
Oh, we've lost your picture.
oh, sorry. As you start your business, you just need to understand that you are starting a business, especially where you are now maybe starting also with other people. So what you need to do from the onset, before you even start dating, you protect yourself. What usually happens, we go through the journey of dating each other, and then when we fight, we don't have anything that is protecting either of us, and it becomes costly. So you need to put your house in order first, whether you are in partnership with other people or alone. Legal, governance, and compliance, they are critical. And when I say legal, on legal, I'm saying that the structure of the company that you've set up, the relationship either with your partners or with your clients, how you formalize that, it is important in terms of commercials as well. And then when I talk about the governance, I'm talking about now the accounting side of things, the things that govern you as an organization. You need to be complying with the Companies Act. You need to probably be complying with, on Junisa's side, maybe he is also running advertising, the advertising standards. So there are other regulatory things that you need to be aware of and complying with.
Yeah.
So that's the governance side. And when you now want to do the compliance, it means you must have tools on how you can implement that compliance. And if you don't, that's when now the risk you will be facing. And then you come to me as Dinana, then I'll be saying to you, oh, you didn't enter into a shareholders agreement with your partners. So that's a fight. Now, as to who owns the company, it's a fight. Then with your partners, mostly is who owns a customer, who owns a brand, how much am I supposed to be paid? That is now on the partner side. With your client is what agreement did we sign? What were you offering me? And why must I pay you? Because you didn't deliver what I bought. You know, so it's those things that we need to make sure that they are in order to make it easier for you as you are facing any battles.
So just
so
to
legal, governance, and compliance.
Absolutely, Dinana. Absolutely.
So when you start a business, you need a lawyer, you need an accountant, you need somebody that understands compliance.
Yeah.
Those are your best friends. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I just want to tell a little story and then if somebody's got a question. I was watching some very fascinating stories about bands and some of the guys. I don't know if you young people have heard of bands like Boys to Men, bands like New Edition, etc. And I was listening to some of their stories, and they started a lot of their stuff when they were at school, right? Now they're talking 13, 40 years later, never having imagined that whatever it is that they were starting in their little garage at home or in their bedroom turned into something quite explosive. But the sad story about what they were talking about was the number of years of not both just financial, but also legal problems they ran into, because right at the beginning, they did not do what they should have done with regards to being compliant. Some of them were broke for many years. Some of them have only just finished their legal wranglings with some of the major industries. So yeah, for all of you who are thinking about business, who are thinking about directions to go, have these in mind, as well as the creatives that you want to have. Any other questions? Come on, this is your chance. You've got a lawyer and yeah, Lakens, go ahead.
Sorry for another one. Dumisa, you said something about you wanting to go to film school. One of the primary reasons was to like network with people, and I find that a lot of people, when giving advice, say that that's one of the most important things to do. Just from that point of view, what are some practical skills or pointers can you give us, like, you know, when you're introducing yourself to somebody, or when you find yourself in those spaces where you're in this room with so many people, how do you approach a position, people in high positions? How do you make yourself stand out? How do you make yourself be noticed by them, if that makes sense, just from like a practical point of view? And in terms of like your business, you've had to take like a leadership role. Connection is unstable. Did you hear my question?
Hey? Oh, no. I think like that's a good question. When it comes to networking, like I haven't really dealt with many scenarios where there's someone who's like on a maybe like a higher level than me that isn't actually willing to just like have a conversation. So one of the biggest things I think, like for me, especially when it came to networking, was sort of overcoming a level of social anxiety and just being able to walk up to like anyone and actually just start a conversation. Then what I'd suggest is, in the event you're ever going to do that, is you have to have a really good understanding of what it is that you do, and you have to be able to explain basically what your value proposition is very easily and make it as understandable as possible. That way that then they can start just quickly understanding what it is that you do and how that could potentially implement into their life. But I think one of the most important things as well to remember with networking is that it doesn't necessarily just, you network with someone and then they're a client. It's not that quick. It's usually building a relationship. And so that's the start of that relationship. And then it takes nurturing and takes time to get to know that person. And generally, once you network with that sort of mentality of like actually developing a good relationship with them, then you end up finding like the best sort of clients or partners or collaborators to really work with. And what was there was another question that you had about leadership? Just
other skills that you've learned, because I think like we get a lot of advice about how to be a good employee, how to be a good team player. Just in taking that leadership role in like running your own business, what are some skills that you've learned in the past year and a half? Oh, okay. And I think Dinana can also answer. Sorry, after you.
Some stuff that I've learned, I think two of like the larger ones is communication. Being able to communicate without sort of getting emotionally flustered or getting emotionally entangled into what it is that you're trying to communicate about is very important, because then you can resolve conflict in a much more efficient way. Another thing that has sort of really helped in terms of learning is sales. The ability to communicate what it is that you are providing and how that can benefit the potential client or customer is a really useful skill to have. And then the last one is people management. We only started this year now we have 2 employees working with us. And that's a skill that I'm learning at the moment, is how to deal with people, how to assign tasks to them and make sure that they're delivering on those tasks consistently. But yeah, I'd say those for me are like the big 3 at the moment.
Oh, thank you.
Good one. So what I might just ask Dinana to do to end off is just answer a little bit of that question as her sort of closing point, because obviously legally networking is critical. So what is your view on the networking side?
Yes, networking is critical, and to be honest with you, it's a skill that you learn over time, especially if you are not really a person that likes hanging around with other people, but you will learn it over time. So what I do for myself, on Fridays, my office, basically you won't find any of us on Friday from 2 p.m. And the reason being is that we must
we must all go network. You must have a plan as to who are you going to meet today, you know, and what are you going to discuss with this person. And the reason I chose Friday was that as part of my journey as an employee, I realized that Friday is such a wasted day, especially Friday after lunchtime. Nobody's working. We are all just using data and phone, just increasing overheads. And that was my main thing to say, how I am going to run my company one day. I am going to be self-employed. I will take also lessons for myself. So I put in my 4.5 days is actually my 7 days in terms of hours that I put in my company. And then Friday, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I'm already at the office. 2 o'clock, I'm done for the day. Either we are going to meet with a client, entertain the client, or as well as a team, just network, understanding each other, because a year is too long, a month is too long, you know, you are putting pressure on your team to push hard. So at least Friday, let's all relax, let's go play. If it means we are going out to watch a movie, let's do that. You know, but that's how I run my company. I'm more output based. So we have to meet our deliverables. And that's it. This thing of checking 8 to 5, from my side, I just feel it's a waste of time. If a person's mind is not at work today, there's nothing you can do about it. They're just wasting your time and money.
Absolutely.
We have technology now. So people can work there. People, I've got, Zanele sometimes works from 4 a.m. because at that time she wants to be able to draft. It's quiet, her mind is fresh.
Yeah.
I cannot be asking Zanele where you were at 8 o'clock. No. From my side, I want delivery. Yes, 8 to 5 is what we have because labor laws tells us that. But hey, I'm running my own company. I'm digital firm.
I'm coming to work for you very soon. That's the life I want to have.
As long as you meet your billable hours, you know, every week we check the target for the week. How far are we from the target? And we have a strict accounting manager from our side. So we report on Fridays. You know, where are you? And it's only your revenue for the week that will show if you've been working or not.
Can I also come work?
Sorry?
Can I also come work there?
Yeah, we're all gonna go. We're all gonna work.
As long as you bring in the money.
We're all leaving.
Yes, I'm not an 8 to 5 person. I've never been. You can even ask my previous managers; they will tell you. Routine, it does not work. Output works.
Absolutely, that's the future.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you, Dinana, and thank you, Dumisa. So what I do is I surround myself with people who are good at network. So that's the other thing. So don't pressure yourself to try and overcome a skill that you may not have.